Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. I'm joined once again by my co-host, tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing just all right, dude. How about yourself?
Yeah, just all right. Right there with you, man. It's a kind of slow week in terms of U.S. soccer, but we do have kind of an update here for everybody regarding the possibility of a new coach being named soon.
Spicy.
A familiar face that we've all come to discuss here in the last couple months. A familiar face that has a relationship with the new sporting director. So we'll get into it. And Adrian, before we start, man, why don't you remind everybody where they can find us?
Sure, man. If they want to see our beautiful faces, they can find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. If you are okay just listening to our pretty voices, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on.
Awesome, man. Let's get right into it. So the man in question is indeed Jesse Marsch, the leading candidate for the USMNT coaching position. We're going to be discussing, if the rumors are true, what can we expect from him? Let's start off with the man himself. What has he done in his coaching career? He started off with the U.S. as the U.S. assistant manager from 2010 to 2011. And then in 2011, August of 2011, he moved to Montreal Impact as head coach. He was there for about a year and 2 months till November of 2012, winning 12 games, drawing 7 games, and losing 17 games. So he had a win percentage of 33%, not the best. He then moved his way up and got a job with New York Red Bulls, January 7, 2015. And he was there for a little over 3.5 years, till July 6, 2018. Where he had a much better record, played 151 matches, won 75, draw 32, and lost 44 with a win percentage of 49.67. He then stayed in the Red Bull family and went to rbsalzburg for 2 years, June 2019 to June 2021, where he did really well. He won 64 games, drew 13, and lost 17, win percentage of 68.09%. And he then, stayed in the Red Bull family again, but moved upwards again after a good performance with Salzburg to rbleipzig in Germany, where he was from July 1st, 2021 to December 5th, 2021. So he got let go without even being a season there, after going 8-4-9, 38.10% win rate. Yeah, so he kind of peaked at Salzburg. He then ended up getting a really big move to the Premier League with Leeds United in February of 2022. He replaced fan favorite Marcelo Bielsa, who had promoted them to the Premier League just 1 or 2 seasons prior. And so it was big shoes to fill for sure. And, one of the reasons they let go of Bielsa was because they weren't certain that they would be staying in the Premiership, had, the way they were going. So he came in to make sure they stayed. They stayed up. And so he remained coach up to the season, where he was let go back in February of this year. So he was only there for a year. Pretty much the same situation. He was more or less the Bielsa at this point. They weren't sure if they were going to stay up. They're still not sure if Leeds are going to stay up. They're actually firing either this week, I believe, his replacement, to bring in Sam Allardyce. So Leeds right now, it's in a downward spiral. He was let go this season because of that downward spiral. And ultimately at Leeds, he had 37 matches, 11 wins, 10 draws, and 16 losses, with his worst win percentage of his career, 29.73%. Overall total win percentage throughout his whole career as coach is 50.15%. So he's had some stints where he's been good. He's had some stints where, notably New York Red Bulls and Red Bull Salzburg. And then he's had some letdowns when I think the pressure got too much for him or the team was too big for him, i.e. rbleipzig or Leeds United. Before we go on to kind of his formations, Adrian, why don't you kind of talk to us about, did he win anything in his time at any of those teams? Did he have any honors?
Yeah, so As you mentioned, I mean, he spent a lot of time with the RB family, right? With the New York Red Bulls, he won the Supporters Shields in 2015 and 2018, which is still a little unclear to me. What's the Supporters Shield? Is that the team that makes the most points in a season?
Yeah, so before the playoffs start, that goes to the team, regardless of conference, that makes the most points. Yeah,
All right, so it's kind of a participation trophy, if you ask me.
it
But
would be the
hey,
champion if it was a European league.
exactly. But hey, I mean, he did his job. He was supposed to make points and he didn't, right? But
Yeah,
his best spell, as you mentioned, is with the Red Bull Salzburg, which he won the Austrian Bundesliga in 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021. He also won the same years the Austrian Cup. I don't want to demerit or say anything bad about the Austrian Bundesliga. It's not like I watch the Austrian Bundesliga, but there's honestly maybe one or two teams in that freaking league. Was he coaching Erling Haaland by any chance?
I think he
Do you
was.
know?
Hmm.
Yeah, so he had Erling Haaland, which you know how it be. He's gonna be
Cheat
it's
code.
I guess I mean yeah he has some it's not a handicap, but he definitely had a boosted team with that guy. And then individually speaking, he won the MLS Coach of the Year back in 2015. So, I mean, as you mentioned, his I don't want to say his peak as a coach happened with the RB family, but it seems to be that with on the leagues with the least amount of pressure on teams that don't really get a lot of the spotlight as much as a team in the Bundesliga or in the Premier League, he was thriving. So those are the accolades that are to Jesse Marsch's name.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the Austrian league isn't the best league in the world, like you mentioned. But I think it's still a step up from the MLS, and he probably is the most
Yeah,
decorated coach, American European
yeah,
based coach. I don't know if
definitely.
any other American has won anything like a league title in Europe or a cup title in Europe. So,
Nah, I don't think so.
so it's, I mean, as far as Americans go in Europe go, that's pretty good for him. So as we move along talking about Jesse Marsch and his possibility of taking over the USMNT, I think it's important that we discuss some of his preferred formations. He's been known to play 4-3-1-2. He's been known to play 4-4-2,
Hmm.
but ultimately, at his last couple uh, months at Leipzig and throughout Leeds United, he preferred to play a 4-2-3-1 formation, one solitary forward, four in the back, two kind of holding midfields, number sixes, and which he had Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams for, and then three midfields, one left flank, one right flank, one center flank, or one center. A formation that it's a little bit more defensive than. Nah, I'd say it's pretty similar actually to how Antonio Hudson likes to play, and
Yeah,
it's a formation that can fit the U.S. very well, I think. Um, but his connection to sporting director Matt Crocker, as we discussed last week, the new sporting director Matt Crocker, who has connections to the EPL. He was the sporting director there at Southampton, and he had interest in bringing in Jesse Marsch after he got fired from Leeds this year. He wanted to bring him in as the new head coach to kind of save Southampton from relegation, which they're still battling. They're actually in a battle with Leeds to stay up. Um,
hmm,
so talks went well, relationships were built, relationships went well. But at the end of the day, Marsh decided to say no. He turned down the role due to it not being a long enough, or due to it being a short term contract. It was more or less, if we go down, you're fired. Where he wanted to, if we go down, it wasn't my fault, and I want to have a chance to bring us back to the Premier League. So there's definitely that relationship, and Crocker has come out and said that he's a fan of his, and
yes.
he's definitely in consideration. So, Adrian, what do you think Marsh brings to the table for the U.S.? Are you a fan of this as far as head coaches go for the U.S. position?
I don't know. I'm still debating if I'm a fan or not. I think there's one undeniable truth that no matter who the sporting director was, I think Jesse Marsch's name was going to be thrown on the table, regardless who regardless if Matt Crocker joined the USMNT or not. And it's just because the fact that if you look at it right, he's definitely like he checks a lot of the boxes that not only uh, the USMNT is looking for, but also the USSF is looking for. He checks out for having local or regional knowledge of the American Football Association or football leagues because he coached at MLS. He has a significant size of a network in Europe. I believe Jesse March also has coached some of the players that are currently on the roster. Um, and so I think if you go down the list, he checks a lot of these boxes. Uh, am
Yeah.
I a fan of this? It's difficult, man, because I mean, it's one of those situations where yes, I would love to have a class A coach in the USMNT to see what he can do with this roster of players, but at the same time, um, I am not sure the USSF it's looking to spend big bucks on a good coach because we know they have money.
To
And second of
clarify,
all,
they
is
they they, they are willing to. The higher ups released a statement back in March saying that they don't care about the money at this point; that they're gonna just go on a coaching basis
but
merit.
this
So
is freaking like mixed signals to us because they say, well, yeah, we don't really mind about how much it's gonna cost us, right? But then you appoint someone, and that someone isn't looking at the Jose Mourinho's of the world. Not that Jose Mourinho is it's a relevant coach right now, but he's not necessarily looking at the upcoming names, or he's not necessarily looking at the the coaches that are making the most noise right now, right? And is that a good thing? I don't know. Is that a bad thing? Not so sure. But I was going to the point of sometimes I feel like in teams with I feel that in this specific case for the USMNT, I tend to favor a coach that understands that has a good knowledge of the USMNT uh, men, I guess player mentality. Like I know that most of the players from the USMNT are actually playing in Europe right now, so it shouldn't be difficult for a European coach to come in and work with them. But I do want to acknowledge that a good amount of them went through the USSF academy, right? And having someone that has that knowledge definitely adds a layer of understanding of that idiosyncrasy of what the USMNT soccer has to offer. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, but if you are if you're saying like, well, why don't we bring someone like I don't know, Carlo Ancelotti for saying a name, right? Even though we know Carlo Ancelotti is going to join Brazil, um, it's just because I don't think Ancelotti will understand what the USMNT is trying to do.
yeah, you nailed it on the point there, man. He understands that culture the USMNT has, and it won't be like having to bring somebody a big name, but somebody that really doesn't watch MLS, doesn't know the whole structure. He understands the whole structure and everything, knows how the system works. So that's a plus, but at the same time, kind of a minus because it's always like these guys are always hiring from within or somebody that kind of
Yeah,
knows, so they're never taking a chance. I see it a two-edged sword. As far as American coaches go, he's undoubtedly the most successful in terms of Europe and one of the ones with the most European experience. He's coached, like you said, some of them in big games in Europe. tyleradams at Leipzig and uh, Leeds, Weston McKennie and Aaronson at Leeds. And so those are three core players for the U.S. for the next 10 years that he's already has experience with. Um, I'd personally like to see U.S. soccer get out their comfort zone and kind of interview other managers, world class managers that have one at the top level that are ready to take the U.S. to that next level. Um, if Marsh is the one for the job, well, okay, he has some accolades, but there's always some that have more merit. But as far as Americans, if we have to go Americans, yeah, I guess Marsh is the best option. So
You don't
we'll see,
sound
man.
convinced, man.
Maybe I'm a fan of Tonio Hudson now, man.
Get
Who
out of here,
knows?
dude. Come on, man. What, you
um,
really want to keep Tanya Hudson on top of Jesse Marsch?
Nah, I mean, if we have to stick with an American guy, yeah, Jesse Marsch is probably the best of the best, right? So, even though again he's failed in the last two clubs, but we'll see what happens, man. Hopefully, I don't know, by Gold Cup time they have a coach, but it's probably going to be until after Gold Cup, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
s- so, Adrian, man, before we take off, where can our listeners find us, brother?
Dude, you can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you get your podcast on. Lastly, but not least, you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Puro Pinche Gol. We post stuff every now and then.
Yeah, be sure to follow us and let us know in the comments. What do you guys think of Jesse Marsh? Are y'all convinced? Will he make a good USMNT coach? Is he there to take the USMNT to the next level? Or who would you like to see as the USMNT coach going forward, or at least being interviewed and considered for the job? We definitely like interacting with you guys in the comments and reading y'all's comments. And yeah, definitely interested in seeing what you guys have to say. So, Adrian, man, it's been a pleasure, man. I'll see you in the next one, brother.
Take it easy, my friend.
See you, man.